Let's talk about individualism. Individualism is a Individualism is a philosophy that promotes self-reliance and autonomy, placing the individual ahead of the group. This is a school of thought you'll find primarily in North America, parts of Europe, and Australia. Countries in South America, Asia, and Africa are typically more collectivist, meaning that the interest of the common good is placed ahead of the interest of any one person. The United States loves individualism. It's essentially the cornerstone upon which our society was built. The Founding Fathers sought to create a country in which an individual's inalienable rights to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness would be recognized and protected. And from then to now, our culture has hammered into us this, in my opinion, undue fear of losing our individual liberties. Now, I'm not saying that individualism as a whole is bad. It'd be really reductive to split cultures into a dichotomy of community-based and individual-based and then say that all in one category are immoral. Both ideologies are easily manipulable and can quickly become a corrupt and unfair way to run a society. But we know how that happens with collectivism. With individualism, it's a little more subtle. There are two primary strands of individualism. For the first, we'll look at a country like Norway. Norway adheres to horizontal individualism, so that means it promotes being self-directed and independent, but it holds all of its constituents in the same regard. It's got a little bit of liberal and conservative ideology in it, which is why it's cited by the right for its laissez-faire fiscal policy and by the left for its equal treatment of its citizens and easy access to things like healthcare. Point is, in a horizontal individualist society, people tend to view themselves as equal to others in status. So you're trying to make yourself stand out, but with the understanding that you're standing out among your peers. The United States uses vertical individualism, which is wildly different. This school of thought operates on hierarchies and improving one's status by moving up the ladder. So while Scandinavians or Australians, though individualist, would be kind of averse to someone who's conspicuously successful or really boastful about their achievements, that's what someone in the US aspires to be. It's really not even a controversial notion that the American dream is to make a name for yourself and get ahead in the world. Even if that's not your personal intent, it's very much ingrained in our culture that self-actualization is attained by achieving one's highest goals. And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. The problem is that this really aggressive sense of each person's individual liberty has invaded every sphere of our lives, undermining other defining principles of a civilized society like equity and community. When there are 300 million of us living in the same marked-off territory, under the same laws, under the same governors, it's an erroneous notion that we don't owe anything to each other. When you put a 5-year-old in a room with 20 other 5-year-olds, the expectation on them is that they're going to get along and cooperate. Take this passage from the 1913 edition of the North American Review. In a civilized society, man has no rights except those which society permits him to enjoy. Society allows him to enjoy certain so-called rights and deprives him of others, not because society desires especially to favor or oppress the individual, but because its own preservation, welfare, and happiness are the prime considerations. Sometimes in the exercise of this power, the individual is put to a great deal of inconvenience. Even at times, he suffers what appears to be injustice. This is to be regretted, but it is inevitable. The aim of civilized society is to do the greatest good to the greatest number, and because the largest number may derive benefit from the largest good, the individual must subordinate his own desires or inclinations for the benefit of all. I know that sounds like a lot, but the Rolling Stones put the same message a little more simply.
You can't always get what you want, honey.
This mask starts to smell weird after a couple hours of wearing it, and the temperature in my area is surpassing 90 degrees and really humid, so it can be pretty uncomfortable to wear it in public. But my comfort and convenience is unequivocally secondary to the safety of everyone around me. That's where we get this thing called an externality. In economics, an externality is when you engage in a behavior, the effect it has on those who were not directly involved. So when you're measuring externality, you've got the individual benefit and the public benefit. In a case like vaccines, the individual benefit is that you are safe from the disease. The public benefit is that those around you, especially those who are immunocompromised and can't get the vaccine for health reasons, they are also safe from the disease by herd immunity. So there's a very obvious individual benefit to vaccines, which is why they're pretty widely accepted. Like, even anti-vaxxers aren't typically anti-vaccine, they're just anti-some ingredient in the vaccine, you know? Most of us understand the benefit that vaccines have to us personally. With masks, we have an individual benefit that is admittedly considerably less than the public benefit. Because the purpose of masks isn't to prevent the wearer from getting the disease, it's to prevent the wearer from unknowingly transmitting it to others. In a collectivist culture, not getting other people sick is an individual priority. That's why you see in East Asian countries far prior to this, it was commonplace and even expected to wear a mask when you're sick, because it's your civic duty to keep those around you safe. They are not to our benefit, they are to the benefit of everyone around us. But we've decided that our right not to be mildly inconvenienced outweighs the protection of everyone living under the same metaphorical roof as us. Frankly, I'd go so far as to say that the I benefit or they benefit dichotomy is at the root of almost every problem we're having right now. The most obvious example of this, as I've mentioned, is the masks. Instead of seeing these mandates as preventative measures to protect those who are more vulnerable to the disease, we see it as the government infringing on our rights. We thump the works of Ayn Rand and enter a third Red Scare over being asked to wear a little piece of fabric on our face. But that's what we have here. We have this really weird reluctance to do anything that doesn't directly benefit us. Black Lives Matter has white people up in arms because they feel like it excludes other races. Namely one race, but that's not the point. But okay, say I had a friend who came to me in a moment of weakness and asked if I cared about them. I could say, I care about everyone. Which is true, but implicitly means, sure, but I'm not really here for you. That's not what they need to hear in that moment. By including everyone in that, we're denying the inherent problem of Black lives not seeming to matter in America. The phrase all lives matter just exacerbates the situation that we're dealing with here. Of course, all lives matter. Black lives are part of all lives. It would be like if I said my shirt is green and you were like, well, lots of shirts are green. Right, that my shirt is one of them. It takes us back to the continually relevant headline of 2017. I don't know how to explain to you that you should care about other people. It genuinely baffles me that a vision of a society where we take others into account is now a partisan thing. That we have women trashing grocery stores and Sebastian Gorka calling masks COVID burkas and this woman in Florida threatening a doctor with citizen's arrest. That a woman is unjustly killed in her own home and we will make a law that prevents that from happening in the future, but we won't do anything to the people who killed her. That we watch a Buffalo police officer push a 75-year-old man to the ground, causing brain damage, and we scramble to find reasons that he shouldn't have been going up to the police in the first place. That 10 million students are in school with cops but not social workers. Which, by the way, police worship kind of goes against the whole libertarian individualist philosophy that these people have, but that's not the point. The world is far too complex and scary for us to all go our own way. I really, really hope that with time we can move away from this culture that stigmatizes giving a shit about anyone other than yourself. We don't come into this world alone. We're born of families into communities that were once tribes, and I mean there still are tribes, but you get what I'm saying. If we aren't willing to be good to the general public, that's just as damaging as not being good to yourself or your parents or your children. Because trite as it sounds, we're all in this together. Isn't that right? We're all in this together. Wearing a mask, donating to charity, advocating civil rights shows that you're a responsible member of the human race. And frankly, it is the very least that we can do.